Welcome to Conversations with Buddy, coming to you live from the Rec Podcast Recording Studio here in Kaiser, Oregon. We drop a podcast every Friday morning with a story that will impact someone, and we hope that someone is you. Please take a moment to like, comment, and also share on your favorite social media platform. We want to get these messages out to the people and impact the world one testimony at a time. Today I have a new guest, and he's also a good friend. His name is Rick Saffeels. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show.
Dude, thanks for being a part of our show. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I got lots of great questions for you today, and I hope you'll be transparent. Share with the world who Rick is.
Yeah, definitely.
So let me just do a quick introduction just to tell a few things about you, and then we'll dive in. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Well, Rick is a husband to Caley. He's a father of 4 kids. Give me the names and ages real quick.
Yeah, we've got Hadley at 7.5, Lucy at 5.5. Don't want to miss that half. We've got Oakley at 3, and Bodie, who is almost 4 months.
Wow. I love your kids, dude. They have so much energy.
Yeah,
it's
well,
incredible.
They love saying your name, and Lucy right now is my favorite. She's like, Buddy Puckett? It used to be Buddy, Putty Bucket. It was something like that. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't take any offense to that. I've been called worse. So, you have 2 brothers, and one of them you're a twin to.
Yep, identical twin.
Identical twin. That's awesome. You're a 5th grade teacher here at Salem Kaiser Candelaria?
Yeah, Candelaria Elementary School.
Okay. I added guitar teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So Rick has taught me guitar before. He's really good. And you're a business owner of Saffeels Social Media.
Uh-huh.
You're a business coach and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of having you as my coach. Good job.
Yeah, thanks.
A former professional disc golfer.
Yeah.
We're going to dive deep in that one.
Oh, man.
And Rick lives life to the fullest. He's got a lot of energy. So Rick and I have we've gone fishing together.
Yeah.
We've actually golfed, even though you're not really a golfer, you're a disc golfer.
Yeah.
But we've golfed together, so it was fun. But, well, let's dive in real quick and learn about Rick.
Yeah, sounds good.
Like I always say, I'm going to learn something about you that I probably don't know. I think I know you pretty well.
Yeah.
But I'm going to learn some things about you today that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So tell us where you were born at and what grade school, middle school, and high school you went to.
Yeah, I was born here in Salem, Oregon. I was born to 2 parents who became Christians, and my dad later in life, and he actually brought his parents to Christ, which was pretty neat. He was stationed in Crete, Greece as a meteorologist on a Navy fleet, and so he had loved being able to try to explore and different things like that, so he did that, but he came back and got stationed in Monterey Bay, California, and then that's where he met my mom in their late 20s, almost 30s, and yeah, then they moved up here to Oregon, so my older brother was born in Salem Hospital, and then we had, it was me and my twin brother, and I mean, the story goes, it's, I was on my way out and found the secret light at the end of the tunnel, and my twin brother's like, peace out, and I'm like, what are you doing? And it was, C-section, so he came out first and stole my birthright, but whatever.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting.
But I mean, it was Tim anyway, so.
It was Tim anyway.
People always were like, who's older? And we're like, Tim.
Damn.
Like Rob and I did not even, we didn't even compete on that. Like we didn't even care. Like people, I remember in the store, somebody would just be like, who's older? And they'd be just looking at me and Rob and we're like, Tim's older.
This guy over here. Yeah. That's funny. So he got the birthright.
Yeah. We stole it later on, macaroni and cheese,
There you go.
Whatever.
There you go. That's funny. So you were on your way out, but then C-section happened and Rob was born. That's
So he came out first and then I was about a minute and a half later. It was real quick.
That's funny.
Yeah, and we were full term. We were born on our due date, so my mom was bedridden for like 3 months before. I was 8 pounds coming out, and he was 7 something. So we were huge.
15,
that's a lot. That's a lot of baby.
Man.
Yeah. So my mom was amazing. Trooper at that. Always wants us to celebrate birthdays because she loves being able to remember just that time period in her life, and yeah, it was really cool.
Huh. Yeah, my next question was tell me more about your parents, but we covered that a little bit. How long have your mom and dad been married?
Let's see. So 19, that's not a good question. I'm not good at that.
Okay. 40-ish years.
Yeah. So 43 years, I think, is where they're at. So But yeah, pretty awesome. They've been married their whole, marriage life has been neat to watch that from the back seat. And, my dad was in Salem Kaiser School District, and so he was teacher to admin and all the way through. And my mom was a teacher starting when we were in second grade. And so they both loved teaching and education, and we lived it. I mean, we were there from 7 up till 7 down. And my mom even had a cot in the back of her classroom for us if we got sick, because we never stayed at home. And so it was just something that we lived at school. We breathed school. At second grade, I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. Like, that's what I knew I was going to do.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Second grade, like, I know, and you are.
Yeah, I became a teacher. Been doing it for 10 years now, so yeah.
How long have you and Caley been married?
So we just celebrated our 10th anniversary.
What? 10?
Yeah, so we got married in 2012, and we got married over pretty close to the cafe that you had breakfast at.
Yeah.
We got married over at the Turner Tabernacle, and it was an awesome wedding, super warm that night. It was like 7 p.m. and it was still 99 degrees almost. So I loved it, super fun. But our kids, we go there every anniversary, and we have a picnic there on the yard. And
seeing your pictures, man.
Yeah. So fun. So
what a great thing to celebrate is your marriage with your kids. I mean, they're a part of that whole story.
Yeah.
What do you love most about being married to Caley?
She is...
Shout out to you, Caley.
Yeah, she is amazing. When we first got married, I was about 3 years and 9 months older. And so I was just like starting out at Canyon View and becoming a director. And I brought her to my interview as my fiance. And so like we started out real young. She was 20 years old. I was 23, just turning 24 that June. And so we started out our marriage it was tough. Like we were learning the ropes. I was making close to $6 an hour at the time. And she was working in Salem, and I was living in Silverton, and we were trying to do everything we could to make things work. And we moved into Silverton and lived there for 2 months. And then, and then we moved here to Salem and lived in an apartment for 7.5 years. And so we started out just real, anything that we did, we tried to do it together. But those first couple of years with me teaching and running the camp at the same time as a director, it was just busy, and I didn't get to see her a lot. So now I'm trying to do a lot more with how can I spend my time loving my wife and spending time with her and our kids. And so I just think that the best thing about marriage right now for us is like getting just to talk and sit on the couch at the end of a day and get to talk about life, and not just talk about the kids, and not just talk about work, and just kind of set the phones in their slot and put them away. And when we get to do that, it's just a sweet time. But we like to be able to go on dates and go adventure new little spots. She was very much routine, same restaurant, same place every time, same food. She has some of these awesome tendencies where she brushes her teeth the same way. And so I'm like always making fun of that a little bit, but, if
she were here, she would make fun of you. I'm pretty sure.
I know, totally. There's just, that opportunity that I've learned who she is, and she's learned who I am. And so just growing in a deeper relationship each year, and at year 10, we're the strongest that we've been in our marriage. And so just getting to that place where we can continue to grow together.
That's good that you guys, you've been married for 10 years, but you guys continually challenge each other to get outside your comfort zone. Instead of going to the same restaurant and doing the same thing, change it up a little bit. And you're probably good for her in that way. How is she good to you? How does she disrupt your thinking a little bit?
I am a free wind gypsy, which is, as I describe it, just whatever needs to be done, whatever's going to happen, I'm out there, I'm going to do it. Growing up, it was not that way. I was quiet. I didn't talk. I was like not even raising my hand in class. I'd never told a girl I liked her up until my college years. Like I had one girlfriend before Caley for like 2 months, and then I married Caley. So it's just like I was quiet. I was like raised in a home with 3 boys, but we like never really fist fought or anything like that. So we were just like, we were more on that gentle side. Like, we got upset, we get frustrated and stuff like that, but we really tried to be in that way. So for my wife, she's brought me back to be that centered, calm, gentle, because it's in me to just be out there and be loud and be on the stage and do that. And and to rein it back and not do a backflip off of anything that I see. And, so that's kind of the thing that I'm learning right now. And my wife really helps me to center on, hey, you don't have to go do 8 activities every weekend. Like I have Dadder Day, which I get my kids out of bed and we start with whatever it is for breakfast, whether it's donuts or we go out somewhere for Saturday market. And in the wintertime, it's like, hey, let's go find a bazaar or whatever it is. Or even it's a park. Like if it's cold, it doesn't matter. If it's snowing, we're on a sled. That's just something that we've done. So I've kind of ruined my kids. They they think that, hey, what's the next adventure? What are we doing next? And my wife's like, we already did 2 adventures, or we already did 1 adventure. Like that's good for the week.
So, you call those Dadder Day?
Yeah.
So on Saturdays, it's Rick and the kids, and you guys just get up early and go. I've seen all your pictures and Facebook.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm exhausted watching you, man. If I'm being honest, like,
that's funny.
You go. But I love that about you. That's what I love most about you. You bring out the energy, even for a guy like me who's older than you.
Yeah.
You have energy, my friend.
Thanks. Yeah.
And your kids have that energy.
They do. My kids are crazy. I mean, people say it all the time, but I look at them, I go, you're not crazy. You are just full of life. And that's what we talk about. Today we're dancing and we were listening to some new music and I was dancing crazy. My kids are just laughing and then they just get up and they dance. And so the more that I can just inspire them to be really comfortable in their own skin. I mean, it doesn't matter if they look a certain way or smell a certain way, like they're out there doing it. And so they're not embarrassed to be the first one to try something new. And they're not, looking at other people going like, hey, should we do this? They're like, they're like raising their hand and going, hey, we want to do this. So that's something that I really wanted to instill in them. Just don't worry if people think that you're loud or crazy or whatever. And I've had people, even at church, they'll look at me and they'll just smile and go, your kids are crazy. And I go, no, they're just loving life. So, yeah.
That's crazy. That's funny.
Yeah.
Good for them. They're very authentic kids. Yeah. And I would say I would raise my girls the same way. Just be you.
Yeah.
Be all you, and they're completely them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that gives me the greatest joy, seeing our kids, just like you see your kids living out who they really are, how God wired them. So that's awesome. What would you say your favorite hobby is, Rick? Obviously your wife, your kids, but setting them aside, just Rick, what's your favorite hobby?
Yeah, I've had a lot over the years. So I've kind of managed it down to about 2 or 3, but right now I'm loving just being able to go out and fish any time of the year, except for mostly in the wintertime for bass, but I'll go out for trout or I've been out for steelhead or different things like that. But yeah, just being out and fishing and on the river, in a lake, in a pond, doesn't matter. I grew up not really doing it. We caught a frog off a log one time and it kind of traumatized us because I hooked it in the eye.
Whoops.
Yeah. So after that, we just never did it really growing up. And so I just started like 5 years ago and my older brother, Tim, introduced me to it. And
okay. So it's Tim.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, we're doing 4th of July. So for 3 years in a row, we had just invited tons of people 4th of July weekend, and we would just go out in the Willamette and we just teach new people and bring them in. And for him, it was like something that was a pastoral passage, rite of passage to be able to be a fisherman. And he didn't fish. And so when he got on that first boat and he was catching fish and stuff like that, it took a while. Same thing for me. Like I didn't like sitting. And I didn't like being in the quiet. Like even disc golf was a quiet sport, but I was out there running through it and sprinting or like playing a lot. And so that was my only hobby really for a long couple of years. I don't know how many years, about 6 years, 7 years. But I just couldn't like sit there and try to catch something. So we got on float tubes or we were in a boat or a kayak or something. And it was more fun even just to move around like that. But yeah, so that's kind of my favorite hobby right now that I like doing.
Cool. Since you mentioned disc golf, when did you start disc golf? When did you become a professional, and how long did you do it for?
So 5th grade is the first time that my parents and I like remember playing. We went on our 5th grade birthday to Western Baptist at the time, and they had this little course. And so I remember getting a hole-in-one from some distance on the last hole. I don't remember how long it was, but we were using ultimate frisbees, and I just remember throwing it from like 200 feet away and making it and just being like, wow, that was cool. And we cheered and it was done. And then, and I don't even know like any other time that I'd ever played up until I was in college. And I went to Corbin University, so Western turned into Corbin, and I had one disc that I found on campus, and I just wanted to play. So grabbed a disc and went out and threw it, and I wasn't very good. And so then I just played in between every single class that I had, and I would just put it in my backpack, and I'd pull it out, and I'd throw it, and I'd run, and I'd throw it and go. Then I had a roommate and some friends, and we just walked all the way to Cascade Gateway, which was like, I don't know, 2 miles away. And we just walked all the way there. And we just played there for the first time back in 2006. And then I was like, okay, this is pretty fun. It's cool to get out and do that. So from 2006 until 2011, it was still pretty recreational and just going out and playing for fun. So about 4 or 5 years. I played in a couple of like team events at Corbin, and there'd be little tournaments that they do for intramurals. But yeah, 2011 came. I became the director at Canyon View. Wasn't playing at all. And then 2012 hit, and almost every day on my way home from work, I would stop somewhere and play. And so there was Woodmansee or Cascade, which are 2 parks here in Salem. And so I just played a little bit here and there, and I would just kind of learn how to do it. But I wasn't getting much better because I was only throwing a certain way. It was just called a tomahawk, and I just kept on throwing it overhead and kind of throwing it like a baseball player. And so I learned the techniques of backhand and forehand like tennis, and I just kind of learned the backhand throw and started doing that. And some guy saw me one time. He's like, hey, I need to have you come meet our local pro, our president of our club. So I played with him, and we tied. And he'd been playing for years, and he was like the local pro. And I was like, whoa, that's fun. And the guy's like, nah, whatever. It was just luck, whatever. So I was like, okay, well, I like this. Like, this is pretty cool. So the first event, I ran it for Canyon View, and there was a huge group of people that came to be able to support and want to play in this event. And we had random baskets that people brought in, and played 18 holes, and it was on December 18th, so right before Christmas. And it was huge. It was super fun. And I was like, this is awesome. And from then on, I just started running tons of events. I was running between 11 and 16 every year for the next 5 years. And then I was playing in the same amount, 10, 15, 20 events each year. From that point, running lessons. I helped coach teams. I was doing clinics. I was doing course design for the city. I was helping design baskets for ODE, the Oregon Correctional Facility, OCE. So, I got super involved. I got really plugged in. I started running my own leagues, my own tournaments, my own events, whatever it was, traveling, playing professionally, and getting sponsored. So yeah, it was just kind of a unique opportunity, and just really dove into it. But yeah, it took up all of my time, all of my thought processes, everything. So.
Yeah. Sounds like you loved it. I know that you were newly married.
Yeah.
And that became one of your, I know we've talked about this, but it became one of your focal points.
Yeah.
Where's the farthest you traveled, and then what made you stop?
Yeah. So I was invited to different things, and I always had to turn them down because I had always said an hour and a half was the farthest I'd travel away from home without having to stay overnight. And then I was like, I had heard about this world tour event, and they were taking the top 130 players in the whole world. And I was ranked 76th or 74th at the time or something like that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I played and traveled down to California to play at La Mirada, which is right across the street from Biola. And I was warming up and playing with the guys that I grew up watching on the YouTube. And they were recognizing me and waving and saying hi just from me being on social media for Discmania, which was the company I was sponsored on right then as a media director. And so, yeah, it was crazy. So I got down there, and my first day, I was in first place for a while for the whole field. And I ended up the day at 21st place. And that was huge. That was crazy. So that night I couldn't sleep. I was staying in a Night's Inn, which is with a K, and it was not the best hotel. It was awesome. And some guy didn't have a room, and he didn't have a place to stay. So he called me and was like, hey, can I crash with you? So he slept in the same bed with me. And we had another queen bed on the other side, and some other guy slept on that one. And I woke up that next morning and I played another round, and monsoon California came in, and it was just the craziest weather. And I remember playing with one of the top guys at the time on my card and just being so nervous. And I asked him, I was like, so do you talk during the round? And he's just like, if it happens, it happens. Like, whatever. Like, don't talk to me. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, from there, I just kept on trying to play some bigger events. I played in some national tour events here in Oregon and traveled up to Washington and played in some events. And I got invited to go to Massachusetts, had a flight ready to go, had the check that they were giving me going, hey, you get to go play in this event. And my wife and I, we were driving to it. I mean, like, we were literally leaving Salem, and I remember her stopping and just starting to cry and go, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want you to go and be gone for this long. Like, it's a week-long event. It's like me staying in some random person's house, and she's like, I just don't want this life. I don't want to be traveling all the time and doing that. And it was super hard for me, but I was like, okay. So that same weekend we traveled to Sisters, Oregon, and I played in a big 2-day event and did fine. And, but I just remember like grudging the fact that I was like, I could have done this. And I was just being held back. And I started creating this wedge in between my wife and I, just going, she is supporting me 100%, but at the same time, she doesn't want to follow my dreams. She doesn't want to do what I want to do. And so I just kept on playing in all these events and doing all these things. And I just kept on getting advice from people going like, is this really what your wife's wanting you to do? I was like, I'm listening to all these other people behind me going, yeah, Rick, go do this. I'll be your caddy. And like, hey, we're doing this. We're sponsoring you in this. Like, I had everything paid for, shoes, pants, hats, bag, discs, travel, everything. Like, it was there. And it wasn't something that was even, I wasn't even touring. I mean, there were guys that were touring and they'd been doing it for like 10 years and they were sleeping in people's vans and stuff. And I was just like getting this really unique opportunity that I was like, I can't say no to this. I had my own logo and my own disc line, and it's just, I was selling discs, I was selling merch, and it was just weird. Like, I was like, wow, I'm on the front end of this. Like, only the top like 10 pros are even doing this, really. And I was doing it here in little dinky Oregon, just in Salem. So, but yeah, at the point I played in a couple of different events, and I played in a combine event where they were asking me to be on their touring team, and they called me up and they said, hey, you're on our team. You made it. And we need you to be gone for 28 weekends during the year. And I had 2 kids, one on the way. And I just had to be on the phone and say, no, I can't do this. And I played in one more event that September. And I looked at my wife. I said, babe, I'm done. She said, I've been waiting for those words for so long. I've been waiting for those words for so long. And I was like, oh. And that was just hard too, just listening to that, going like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. So
it's called priorities, man.
Yeah. So I finished out that in 2018, went cold turkey, didn't even play for the whole next year.
Wow.
Still haven't played a tournament or a league event since. I play when people ask me to. I'll go out and throw. But yeah, I just haven't played at all anymore.
So if I rewind the tape and I ask you how your marriage is going, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been better. It's been one of those things but it's easy for me to continue to then transfer that energy that I was putting into disc golf into something else. And so 2019, it was into fishing, because that's when I started fishing.
Yeah. So
then I was like fishing all the time, and it was fun. And, I was taking my kids and asking people and going all the time, but it wasn't like I was getting sponsored, but, it was just fishing. And so it's easy for us when we have an addiction to something to not just run back to the Lord and go, God, like, how would you fill my life with this void? How would you fill my life with something that's you? Instead, we look to something else going, okay, I have this emptiness now, or I have this like huge amount of time and energy that I've spent doing something for years, and then I just need to fill it with something else. So that was something easy for me to fill it with. But the biggest thing that I saw a change in and for my marriage too was I was at the time helping out in our youth group, and we were helping with the high schoolers. And I kept on just talking about what is the importance of being in God's word every day. And so that's what I started doing. It was like, I'm saying it, I'm preaching it. Am I doing it? No, I'm not. So I've
never done that before. That's weird.
I got a journal, and I was just every single day. So for the first year, it was just like, if I missed a day, I wasn't like beating myself up, but it was like, I'm just not going to miss. And so I didn't want to, and I didn't. So that was something really neat. I read through the Bible the next year. Now I'm reading through it backwards. And so I'd never done it before. I'm not like reading it backwards because that'd be weird. But like I'm starting I started in Genesis to Revelation, went through the whole thing. And then I was like, well, God wrote the story from the beginning to the end. So let me look at it and how it's pieced together backwards. So I read through Revelation, starting with chapter 1 through 21. And then I just am working each book backwards. And it's giving me an opportunity to be able to remind myself like, oh, like God had this happen, but where did it come from? And it's the context. And I teach about that a lot. Just the before and the after is super important when we're reading God's word or anything in specific, in school or whatever. But that context piece was super interesting for me because now that I've read it from the beginning to the end again, it's like, oh, cool. But now it's like, oh, like, remember this piece? Like that happened because of this. And so it's again, another way to look at it. So that's been something that I've been really into and just kind of, it's been helping, to ask questions and to talking about our marriage. And it's tough, with 4 kids. She's at home, she's homeschooling 2 of them, and she's trying to find time in the day just to be able to breathe. But that's something that I feel like when we were able to really just talk about it and sit down and say like, hey, what has God been teaching you, or what? That's something that we obviously desire to do more. It's hard in this season, and every part of our lives are a season, but that's kind of where we're at right now. But
yeah, there's definitely lots of seasons. I was going to ask a question. We're going to get into business here in a moment, but my question to you is, would you call your disc golf love an addiction or a focus? Because I heard you say the word addiction, but one thing I know about you, you're laser focused. You do a great job of, just the way you currently run your business and do your 9-to-5 job.
Thanks.
You're laser focused. So I look at you as a focus guy, but you said the word addiction. Tell me about that.
I mean, addiction's a tough word when you're talking about anything, and especially when you're talking about yourself. So I would say, what defines an addiction? Like if somebody was to say like, what defines addiction, buddy? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, that's great. You asked me the question. Okay. An addiction, well, I look at it as something bad. So I would say something that causes me not to live out the life God wants me to live. So if I were, anything that doesn't honor God, doesn't honor my wife. So let's say I wanted to go hunting every weekend. Yeah. And I'm gone hunting. I guess I could say that's an addiction now because I'm really thinking about me, myself, and I.
Yeah. So basically I would say that something that is a focus versus an addiction is when I'm focused on something, I tune out the sounds, I tune out the noises. And if something distracts me, I'm like, whoa, like that was weird. An addiction, I feel like, is when you have a priority to meet with that above anything else. It's when your thought process, your thinking, you're waking up, you're going to the bed, everything has become a thought process about that. So you can get addicted to listening to fantasy football podcasts and watching that. And you could get addicted to things that don't actually have that addictive quality. For example, like you can get addicted to smoking and drinking and things like that, but like you can get addicted to being on podcasts. Like you can get addicted to running your business. When it becomes that focus that any part of the day that you have to be pulled away from, that you can't just say, oh, I can turn that on and off. It's not a hobby anymore. It's not your job. It's an addiction. And your job could become an addiction, but that's what I feel like happened. I went from liking something and loving something and focusing on something to literally like being addicted. I mean, a crazy story. I know it's terrible, but my wife was giving birth the next day. We had already planned out what our birth plan was going to be, and she was going to get induced. And that night before our first baby was born, I said, I need to go play in this league. And she's like, what? And it's like, well, I have this points series and I have to be there to get these points. And so like, I have to be there. And she's like, you're joking, right? and so that's the thing. It's like, when it gets to that point, and maybe people that are listening to this, you have something in your life that you're addicted to right now, and you thought you were focused on it, or you thought you loved it, but it's something that really, it's an addiction. And, Monday nights or Tuesday nights here in town with Most Excellent Way, we are very often addicted to things that we don't understand. And sometimes it's pride. And for me, pride was something that I was addicted to. So the disc golf itself as a sport, I was listening to it, watching it, teaching it, training. I was eating it, sleeping it, breathing it. I mean, that could be a focus, but it also can become that addiction. And so I think that's why I use that word, because it changed my mindset. It changed the way that I thought about people. It changed the way that I thought about events. When I went to plan out a vacation, it needed to have a spot that was close to a disc golf course. When we, went to go hang out with somebody, on my way back, there needed to be a place where I could go train or throw something. And so that's where it became the addiction.
The word addiction is a very strong word. So I like that you actually use that, because you can sugarcoat and go, oh, I just like to do disc golf, and you would manipulate where you would, bead so you can go practice.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to transition a little bit.
Yeah.
So Rick, you work a 9-to-5 job at Salem Kaiser. It's actually more like 7 to 3:30 or 4 or whatever it is, and weekends and evenings, and you work very hard.
All throughout May.
You also have a business. So here's where I want to go is I want to hear about Saffeels social media, being a business coach. What is it that Saffeels social media, what is your focus? You've coached me before. Maybe you can talk a little bit about who's your ideal client, and tell the audience actually what you enjoy about that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, the story started from you, buddy, just saying I don't like social media, and talking to my wife and another gal from our church, and they're just like, hey, like, you should hire Rick. So I was like, I don't do that. I mean, I just post videos, and
That's right. It was your wife at church one day. You should hire Rick. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. And so we met, and after like 2 minutes, you're like, you're my guy. And I was like, for what? And you're like, I don't know, whatever you want to do. I mean, you're going to do it. And I'm like, okay. And I just remember that was my first experience doing that, because like I had been hired for a lot of things social media wise, like Canyon View. I was building the website. I was doing all of the flyers. I was training people on how to be able to reach out to others online and everything, and email marketing. And I just learned all that. And then through disc golf, I got hired as their social media. It was like a position. It was a media sponsor. I don't know. I basically made videos, and they sent me free stuff. And then I worked behind the scenes of some clothing brands and some other brands like that, where I learned about how to run an international, it was on Asana, which is a type of planning social media software. And I'm watching 27 people on one pipeline working on the same project from 7 different time zones. And we were all coordinated and planned out, and everybody knew what was going on, and everyone knew what the due date was, and when it was green to yellow to red, and then we're complete, and then we're moving on. And I just watched that going like, whoa, like that's incredible. And I know how to do this now. So when I saw that piece of it, Saffeels social media was built on the idea to help people. So 2019, it was November, and that was our first day kind of like starting stuff out. And you had already talked to 2 other people that became clients, and I was like walking into their home, and they're like, okay, I need to post a picture to Facebook, and I need to upload it from my computer. Like, how do I do this? So it started out really small and simple, and somebody's like, what do I pay for this? Like, I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, just tell me a number. And I was like, that's the second person that's told me, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know how to do that. So it became like learning about what it becomes valuable for somebody else's time to not have to learn it, and what is the value placed on the expertise that you have in that. So when you talk to a videographer and you say, hey, I want a video done, let's just say it's real estate. And they say, well, I'll do it for $150. And I go, sweet. So then they take out their $6,000 worth of equipment. They go in and they take out their gimbal and their drone, and they're doing all this stuff for your real estate. They then have to edit. They then have to piece everything together, put it to music, have the transitions. They have to upload it, export it, and then they put it online on a website file, in a YouTube video, as well as Vimeo or on Instagram, and then also post it onto Facebook. And they're like, okay, so for $150, somebody can do that? Yeah, but that's like it's like 10 years worth of time to learn it. It's like so what we were trying to do is, I started this out going, how can we provide something that's going to be all this expertise and all this knowledge and all this time and put it to a small business? And so my main focus has just been small businesses, like micro businesses. So like 12 employees or less has been my main focus. And the reason why is because they just don't have the ability to hire somebody full time, or they don't have the time because they're wearing 12 of their hats. And I know how to do it. And I remember learning that it takes a lot of time, and then we now have the tools to be able to help people. So my goal is not to make, millions of dollars on this. It's like, I'm a full-time teacher, and I will be able to run this at the same time. And yes, people ask me all the time, like, why don't you just do this full time? And I probably could, it's doing great, but I really do like being able to teach, being in the community at the same time. So it's a lot of work, but that's what it's kind of come down to. It just is, my main focus is helping small businesses to be able to use social media in the correct way and be able to market their business so that they might be able to be seen by the communities.
Yeah. You do it really well too, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. For a guy like me who's been around for a long time, I don't get the language. So you make it really simple.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Yeah. It's just something that I think I see a lot of people doing it wrong. And a lot of people are trying to drive the Grant Cardone and the 10 times.
The 10X.
Yeah. And just wanting to really build on how you can make the most money possible. And I'm countercultural with that. So there's a lot of people doing this now in town, and a lot of people in the world doing this. And I'm a lot more on let's tell people's stories. Let's show the people that own the businesses and the behind the scenes. And let's not just tell everybody about your product and how many sales you're running and all these things. Like, get people to get to know who you are. That's where you're going to be able to get to know people and to really have people that are going to build a brand loyalty. Because I think that as far as a small business goes, they have to have people who are going to continually help them and not just be there once in a while. You've got these multi-million-dollar brands, but they have multi-million-dollar budgets to be able to spend money on these things. And we support that, and we support them, and we buy their clothing and we buy their stuff. But it's the mom and pop shops, the brick and mortars. It's those people that are really needing it because it's a one family stop and shop, and that's it. Like, if they're running a coffee stand, or they're running a t-shirt or a hot tub business or whatever it is, like, they're it. And at the end of the day, like, if they're not making the product go out, like, it doesn't go out. So that's what we really want to help with, just taking a hat off of the business that they're already wearing so many hats, and then to be able to implement the strategy for them.
Yeah. Sounds like you, and I know you do, but it sounds like you really care about people.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you got to make money. We know that. But that's not your priority. Your priority is to serve the community and have an impact.
Yeah.
So I really like that. That's really cool.
And I know there's a lot of people in town that are doing it for a lot more money, and they tell me, Rick, like, why are you doing it for so cheap? And like, why are you undercutting my prices? And I'm like, I'm not trying to hurt you.
That's not about them.
I'm really trying to help these other people.
They need help.
Yeah. I'm not worried about if I'm underneath these other people and how inexpensive it is. It's like, this business or this nonprofit or whoever it is, like, they might need a free video. And I'm like, yeah, let's try to do that for them. And so that's kind of our heart. We can't do everything pro bono, but we want to be able to help out as much as we can. So yeah.
Hey, let's wrap up the podcast this way.
Sure.
What do the next 5 to 10 years look like for you, Caley, and your kids, personally, professionally? What's your main focus? And I want to see what a snapshot of next 5. So how old are you right now? 32?
34.
You're 34.
I know. I could have been 26. But
you're 26, yeah. 34? Okay. So at age 30 or 44, 10 years, 5 to 10 years, what's it look like for Rick?
Well, my oldest daughter will be a senior in high school. And
Hadley.
Yeah, that's about it.
Hi, Hadley.
Yeah. I just think that I am a 2-week out kind of guy. Because my main priority at this point is, I just think about a really great phrase that Matt McCullen, which is a pastor at Salem Heights Church, has talked about, which is Maranatha. Just like, what is next is a super big question for a lot of people. And I don't get tied up into that. So I had no idea this was going to happen with my business. I mean, I had no idea disc golf was going to happen. I didn't plan for anything. Like, I barely apply for some of these jobs that I've gotten because God just opens these doors. And it's just like, it's been an incredible journey as I've walked through a lot of open doors. And I'm so thankful for those things. So I honestly don't look out 2 weeks, 2 months in advance. Like, I'll do contracts for 6 months and I'm like, man, I hope I'm alive. Maybe, I don't know. If not, like, somebody else is ready to run it behind me. But I just think that, you know, it's one of those things that I really don't put a whole lot of stock into that, because I'm looking forward to heaven. And I know that, you know, God has a bigger plan than what we've got right now. And, you know, I'm in a house that I told my wife during our engagement time, I was like, we might be living in my purple van that we have. Like, I just don't know. And so I really I try to live each day like this could be a last day. When I get to the end of the day and I know that it's kind of rough or it's something that has been a tough day, I go to, you know, apologize to my kids or apologize to my wife, and we plan out for the next day, but that's about it. And so I really try hard not to focus on what is the next 5 years, because almost every year is different. Every 3 years has been different. I've been at a different school or a different job all throughout these last 10 years, just kind of skipping through things. So yeah, it's just been something that I just don't put a whole lot of priority on, but yeah.
I like how you live, because you live, to me, that's more like living by faith. Because if you have an expectation of what 5 or 10 years look like, and you get there in 5 or 10 years and you're not where you want to be, are we then sometimes disappointed? Like sometimes somehow God let us down, and we're just disappointed. But the facts are, you wake up every day. I got tomorrow planned out, maybe a little bit if I'm there. Yeah. And that's about it. I actually like that, because you're not too uptight. Yeah. One day at a time. We all say that, one day at a time, but then we don't always live that way.
Yeah, I went to a really interesting memorial of this guy who, he had his tattoo. It was Alive in Christ, and everything that he did was, you know, wake up the next day for an adventure. And Jared he was a really unique guy, and his story is still going on and being told, which even now. But I just look back remembering that, and I was sitting in the very top bleachers of CMA Church, and I was the very last row up with my back up against the wall, sitting on the ground because there was no room, and that whole thing was packed out. And it was crazy. And I'm sitting there just like crying, going, is this the life that I'm leading right now? Like, do I want to be living a life that God is at the end of my days going, that is well done, good and faithful servant? And if not, like, what is it that I need to change? And so that was the first thing that I thought about. Like, I love where I'm at today, and I don't need to worry about where I'm at tomorrow. Like, I got a truck and somebody's like, oh, it has scratches on it. I was like, dude, I don't get to take it to heaven. And, you know, we bought a house and someone's like, oh, but there's this problem and that problem. I was like, I don't get to live there in heaven. Ooh. You know? And so it's like, yeah, there's problems and there's difficulties and stuff like that. And I'm super weird. I try not to get stressed out. I try not to get hung up on things, and I'm just going. So,
wow. Yeah. Man, I'm going to take a lesson out of your playbook here, because I can tend to think about 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm easy come, easy go, but I think I could actually live a little bit more day by day, a little bit more by faith. Yeah. So I think I'm going to take that one out of your book.
And it's obviously important to have plans. I mean, you want to have a retirement, stuff like that, but it's like a lot of people don't.
Do you need retirement?
I know.
I mean, I don't know where Jesus retired.
401k.
I don't see the. Yeah, exactly.
So I just know, you know, at this point, we want to prepare something for our family and have something ready to go. But yeah,
Rick,
we'll be trusting.
This has been fun. Yeah. Hey, I like you. I love you, brother. Yeah. I've always enjoyed hanging out with you. I appreciate the time. So if somebody wants to reach out to you and learn a little bit more about, I don't know, disc golf, fishing, Saffeels social media, maybe they want to hire a business coach locally. Yeah. How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think that the easiest way is to find me and just type it in online. I know I got a weird, unique name, but it's Saffeells. And if you just type in Rick Saffeels, something will show up and you'll be able to find me. But yeah, I'm on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, and you know, I'm out there for people to be able to find it. But again, my first priority that I started with disc golf was hashtag I'm third. And hashtag I'm third was God first, other second, and I'm third. And I got really bad at that. But that's something that I really want to prioritize, and just, it's not about me. It's not about building my empire. And so if you want to reach out, that's fine. But if not, the biggest thing is, we want to be able to have people know that God loves you, that I'm a sinner, that Christ died for me. And if you trust him as my Savior, I'll live forever with him. And that's a handful of hope. So that's the biggest thing that I want to be able to tell people. And if they find me, that's cool. But if not, I hope that they find Jesus.
Amen. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Rick. Appreciate you, man. If you would do us a favor, all you listeners, just like, share, comment. This is a great story that Rick shared. But any of our podcasts, if you'd please just share the stories of people. It's going to impact somebody. I don't know who. It's not up to me. It's up to God. That would be awesome. We'd appreciate that. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.